Hi friends, today we're going to be talking about some bookish red flags. These are things that I see in books or hear about in books, and they immediately make me want to run the opposite direction. Sometimes, obviously this is not a hard and fast rule, sometimes I will read books that contain these things, but they definitely affect the rating of the book. For sure. Before we dive in, make sure to subscribe if you love bookish content. I would love to be bookish besties, and comment down below what your bookish red flags are. I'm so sorry if I end up roasting any of your favorite books with my red flags, but we all are entitled to our own opinions, and I want to hear yours in the comments below. Let me know. Okay, we're starting off pretty tame, pretty easy, pretty obvious, but font. My first red flag is tiny or hard to read fonts. But especially, I feel like hard to read fonts doesn't really happen all of that often, but tiny fonts drives me crazy. Especially when it's a tiny font, but not that many pages, so it makes you think that the book is short, but there's so many words on each page that it's actually not a short book. And then it makes you feel insane because it's taking you forever to read a book that doesn't have that many pages, but then you have to remind yourself that the actual font of the book is so small that it's like reading two books in one book. If I were an author, I would make the font of my books massive, so big. I don't need a tiny little font. Make it easy to read, make it enjoyable. I feel like it's the act of turning a page. It's just so satisfying. And so with tiny font, you don't get to turn the page as quickly, which makes it less satisfying to read. But also, I just hate when it's so small that you have to like squint and try to like read the book. Like, just give me a big font. What is the problem with that? Why is that so hard? Red flag number 2 is kind of specific, and I also think I'm not the only one that feels this way, but red flag number 2 is choppy and or over flowery writing. So when a book is too descriptive, or when a book is written in riddles. So there's two main ways to really like find this in a book, if that makes sense. But for choppy writing, short sentences. If the sentences are too short, and just like a bunch of too short sentences, it just feels choppy and it's not a good time to read. On the opposite side, if the sentences are too long, overly descriptive, flowery, if you will, it is also just not a fun time to read. There's definitely a balance that must be found between writing short and concise, but also not too short, but also not too flowery. I don't know. I hope I'm not the only one. I will say this is something that I am more willing to read the book anyway if I know it's going to be this way, because it's really easy for me to just skip reading the parts that are overly flowery. Choppy though, choppy is hard to avoid, so I don't know about that one, but for flowery, definitely I could still read the book and just skip the parts that I feel are irrelevant. I just don't need you to describe the way the grass looks or the sky or the breeze more than once. Just say it once, we get it. Red flag number 3 is when a main character is dumber than they should be. I need the main character to act their age. Point blank, period. Don't get me wrong, we love a good flawed character, but if the main character is supposed to be in their mid to late 20s and they have zero common sense, or you can hear them think and you just think they sound like a child, why? It's so frustrating to read from the perspective of someone who isn't using their brain. This is one that I have heard a lot of people talk about before, but I never really understood or had an example of this. But I recently read a book where the main character was just not using her brain at all. And when she was using her brain, it was like, why are these your thoughts? She literally sounded like a sleep-deprived toddler, and I don't understand how she had made it that far in life and was somehow in her mid-20s, and just, it's frustrating. And I feel like it also takes you out of the story, because when you're reading and you hear some dialogue or hear some inner dialogue from a character, and you're just like, why the heck are you thinking like this? It takes you out. All of a sudden you're thinking about their writing, you're thinking about the character, but not what they're doing. Like, it just takes you out of the story. Anyway, moving right along, red flag number 4 is super long chapters. I recently finished a book, the last book that I finished reading. It was 250 pages. It had 4 chapters. 4 chapters. I think the biggest reason that this is a red flag for me is because I don't like finishing my reading session, if you will, until I get to the next chapter. Once I get to the next chapter, I can close the book and like leave it for a bit and then come back. I think that's a pretty universal experience. Most people are that way. So when a book has super long chapters, I can't keep waiting for the next chapter to walk away, so it feels very unsatisfying. And I leave in a place that doesn't feel like, when I have to leave the book and go do something else, I'm leaving in a place that doesn't feel safe to leave, because it's not the end of a story, it's not the end of a thought, it's not the end of like a scene. I just have to leave the scene and then come back to it in the middle. I think we can do better. I think we as a society can agree that all books should have short chapters, or, I mean, not every single chapter has to be short. Some should be long. I can understand that. But in general, there's no need to have every single chapter a 250-page book with 4 chapters. I think that you probably feel the same way about that one, so let me know down below if that's true. Red flag number 5 is forced / like unrealistic / like weird dialogue. I hate when you're reading a book and you start to hear the characters talking and it just sounds weird. Like, it doesn't sound like a human is or would ever say the words in the sentence or in the way that they're saying them. Like, having the dialogue feel so disjointed to the human or whoever is talking, the character that's talking, again, just takes you out of the story, because it makes you think about, like, why are they saying it like this, or why do they talk like this, or who are they, where did they come from? And all of a sudden you're not thinking about the plot, you're thinking about the weirdness of the character. I feel like this happens a lot when an author is trying to write a character that's younger and is trying to sound like a younger character. Or I also feel like I see this when when you're writing as if it is the current year. Like, when characters talk about social media, I feel like that doesn't ever sound natural. But I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Number 6 is toxic relationships. Okay, don't hate me for this one. I know that it's super popular. I mean, come on, Magnolia Parks. We know that it's popular. I just hate it. I read Never by Jessa Hastings, and the toxic back and forth of that book drove me mad. I'm not sure if Magnolia Parks is the same way. I'm not sure if the toxic back and forth is the same. From what I've heard, I think it is. And if so, I just would hate it. I hated Never by Jessa Hastings with every ounce of my soul. I also think that I am, as a person, very stubborn. Okay, I don't think. I know that I'm very stubborn. I am a Taurus. I'm an oldest daughter of the family. I'm very stubborn. And if someone does me dirty, I will not be forgiving them. So I just can't imagine. It doesn't seem realistic to me to read these books of characters in toxic relationships continuing to stay in them. And you cannot convince me that the ending of a toxic relationship book is a happily ever after. It simply is not, cannot, will not be. So sorry. If I know that there's a toxic relationship, I 1000% will not read them. Like I said, the only book that I've ever read like this was Never, and I am never reading anything like it again. No chance. Red flag number 7 is kind of similar, but also different. This one I feel like happens more in a dystopian or in a fantasy romantasy, and less so in just a plain old romance, contemporary fiction, any of that. But red flag number 7 is a pointless love triangle. Don't get it twisted. I do like a love triangle. I think especially in a dystopian or in a fantasy, a love triangle can be a lot of fun. However, when the love triangle feels like its only purpose is to create more drama for the story, and it's like there's no layers to it, it's not deep, the relationships aren't deep at all, that's when I have a problem with it. So when you can tell that one person is the clear love interest and the other person is there just to cause drama. Nope, not here for it. I don't need it. Red flag number 8, I don't think is controversial at all. I think that everyone will agree with me on this one. However, I think that everyone's kind of opinion of like when this happens will differ. So it's when nothing happens for 50 to 75% of the book. Trust me, I love a slow burn. I enjoy a character-driven story when it's done well, but when nothing happens for 300 pages and then the last however many pages stuff happens, why did it need to be so long? I need something to keep me engaged, keep me reading. So even a book that is just a character study, as long as there's development with the characters or some sort of development with the plot, as long as that continues within the first 75% of the book, then we're good, we're chilling. I just need something to happen. I need something to keep me engaged. When the pacing of a book is slow, this usually happens, and I hate with every ounce of my soul a slow-paced book. Red flag number 9 also kind of is similar to this one / I don't know, I feel like they kind of make sense together, but it's when a book has no sense of time. This one might seem like kind of oddly specific too, but I need a book to tell me, like give me a sense that time is passing. Sometimes you'll finish a chapter, you start the next chapter, and all of a sudden 3 weeks has passed, but you didn't realize that until you're further into the chapter. I don't know if that makes sense. But basically, like, I need the author to spell out to me how much time is passing. But at the same time, I hate when a book, like when no time is passing throughout an entire book. It's like you read 300 pages and you realize that it's been 1 week. When I don't know how much time is passing, or when time is going by super slowly, it just makes the story feel very disjointed, and it makes it feel unrealistic. It's like I need to know when they're going to sleep, okay? I need to know. Finally, my last bookish red flag, I think might be kind of controversial. I think a lot of people like this. I don't like it. But that is, it's unresolved endings to books when there are no further books in the series to continue. When the author leaves the ending like up to the reader or up to interpretation, get that out of here. I need to know what happens, and it's rude of you to not wrap things up with a bow. You're really just not going to tell me how you think that the story ends? You, the author of the story? I feel like a lot of books ended this way when we were like reading for school. I can't think of any right now, but like I feel like it happened a lot when we would finish a book and we'd then sit for however long talking about how we think the book ended. It's like, why can't they just tell us? Please tell me that someone else feels that way too, because it just feels absurd to me. Like, it's your story. Don't you want to be the one in charge of how it ends? But that's it. Those are all of my bookish red flags. If a book has more than one of these, it's probably a definite no. Definitely not going to read it. But again, I did talk about some of these were already definite no's just on itself. Like toxic relationships, I absolutely will not be reading books of my own choosing of that trope. What about you? Are there any of these that don't bother you? Are there any more that do bother you that I didn't mention? I absolutely love hearing your thoughts, so let me know in the comments. Again, if you enjoyed this video, if you like bookish content, and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future bookish content. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!